today's video we're going to do about primary memory. In the description below I'll put the links to the different sections so you can just skip to the bit that you need. Primary memory consists of two main parts, RAM and ROM. ROM stands for read-only memory. This means you can read the instructions stored on the ROM, but you can't save to it. ROM stores the boot sequence. This is the instructions needed to start the computer up. The boot sequence starts with the BIOS, which stands for Basic Input-Output System. The computer then checks things like the memory is working properly and that the input and output devices are working properly, before then loading the operating system into the RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. RAM stores the instructions that are currently in use. These instructions are created by you using the computer, so anytime you click on something or run a program or do literally anything on your computer, it creates an instruction. These are temporarily stored in RAM because RAM is volatile. This means that when you turn the computer off, the instructions stored in RAM get deleted. Sometimes the RAM memory gets full. This causes the performance of your computer to slow down. In order to try to solve this problem, your computer then sections off part of the secondary storage and uses it as virtual memory. Virtual memory is part of the secondary storage that is used as RAM when the RAM is full. The problem with using virtual memory is that it runs a lot slower than RAM, so the performance of your computer will slow down. There are lots of different reasons why your RAM memory might get full. You might have lots of different programs open and be swapping between them quickly, or you might be using a program that creates a lot of instructions, so playing on games or using video editing software. One solution to improve the performance of your computer is to upgrade the RAM. It's quite easy to do, you just clip out the old RAM and pop the new RAM in. RAM is definitely one thing to look out for when purchasing a new computer. You need to make sure that the amount of RAM your computer has is enough to do whatever you want to do with your computer. So if you're just planning on browsing the internet, you probably don't need a computer that has a lot of RAM. But if you're planning on playing games or doing video editing or image editing, you're going to need to make sure your computer has enough RAM. One thing to do is to check the system requirements of any game or program you plan on using. Then, to look at any laptops or computers you plan on buying and check that the amount of RAM is more than what is needed to play the game or run the program. The more RAM you have, the less likely you are going to run into problems such as programs crashing or stalling or loading. Okay, so let's have a look at this exam question. The specification of two CPUs is shown in figure 1. There's figure 1. Part B, identify two other parts of a computer that are not in figure 1 which could improve the performance of the computers. So both of those computers in figure 1 are talking about the clock speed, the cache and the number of cores, so we can't have any of those to answer part B, but for today's lesson we've just done about RAM and we should know that increasing the RAM will improve the performance of a computer, so for one of the answers you can write RAM. For this second question it says that a sat-nav uses RAM and ROM. Tick one box in each row to show whether each of the statements is true for the RAM or the ROM in the sat-nav. So the first one says it stores the boot sequence of the sat-nav, so hopefully from today's lesson we should know that ROM stores the boot sequence. The second part says the contents are lost when the sat-nav is turned off, so we should know that RAM is volatile and ROM is non-volatile, so the answer to that one is RAM. And then the last one says holds copies of open maps and routes, so we should know that RAM stores anything that is currently in use, so that one again is RAM.